represented among the students, and such a wide range of backgrounds and level of education. And we really work hard to meet each student where they are. And in just a moment, we'll get into some of the choices that we have that you can opt into. But no matter what your background or how many years of Jewish education you've had or what kind of Jewish education you've had, we believe that Jewish tradition just has a lot of great stuff in it, and that there's ideas and values and community and really meaningful traditions that can help all of us to lead a happy and meaningful life. And we want to give you access to that and help you to connect to that. So that's really the focus of our Jewish education inside and outside the classroom, is we try to make opportunities for you to connect this stuff, the Jewish content and the Jewish ideas, to your own life, to things that you're thinking about. We try to connect the material to questions that you're really thinking about in your life, and that's going to impact you in a real way and in your everyday life. So with that said, I'm going to pass it over to Rabbi Meirowitz, who will lead us through the options for the Jewish Studies curriculum.
Sure, and I am just going, hello everyone. I posted a file in the chat a little while ago called Jewish Studies 2021. I'm also going to share that as a document so we can all look at it together while I am talking. So just one second, here we go. Okay. Okay, can you see that? Yes, thumbs up, we got it? Okay, when I'm sharing a screen, I can't see your faces, so you can see my face and see this text. Okay, so I want to talk to you about, I'm the chair of the Jewish Studies Department and the Associate Dean of Jewish Education. And I want to just tell you a little bit in like 2 minutes about the different kinds of Jewish Studies classes we offer. One of our main principles at Gann, and this is not just true in Jewish studies, but it's especially true in Jewish studies and Jewish life, is choice. Because we're such a diverse school, we want everyone to find a Jewish studies class which is right for them, which will be challenging, which will be thought-provoking, which will help everyone grow and learn and develop as a learner. So we have 3 kinds of classes. So this first class here, I'm going through the 3 types of Jewish studies classes on this sheet. The first one, these are what we're calling topics-based classes where the texts are in translation. Sometimes we call these our standard Jewish studies classes. And these are classes which move through various topical units on one big theme each year. So for example, in 9th grade, all of the texts we learn in 9th grade are around the rhythms and purposes of Jewish life. So you might spend a month on Shabbat and thinking about making holy time. You might spend a month on kashrut and holy eating. And all of those texts are taught in English translation. The discussion is in English, but you're learning primary texts of our tradition. The second kind of class, the top is a similar class in that it's topics-based, but the texts are taught in the original Hebrew or Aramaic. So sometimes we call those Beit Midrash classes. And that really gives you students, especially who come from a day school background, the opportunity to both work on their traditional text skills, but in the context of thinking about big themes, big ideas. So again, same thing. In the 9th grade, they'll do rhythms and purposes, thinking about Jewish holidays. In 10th grade, it will be the development of Judaism, really Jewish history, and thinking about the birth of the rabbinic project. How did Judaism reinvent itself after the destruction of the Second Temple? 11th grade is philosophy and ethics, again, for both topics-based classes, 1 and 2. And then 12th grade has multiple electives, which you'll see there. And we have one other kind of class, which is sort of different from these first 2, which might be more similar to what those of you who have gone to Schechter or to JCDS might have experienced, where the class is really centered around learning one book of Talmud, one book of the Bible, of Tanakh, or one volume of Talmud, and sort of learning through straight so that one can really work on developing primary text skills. And all of these classes are opt-in. Everyone can choose the class that's right for them. And for 9th grade, there's just the option to take 1, but in future years, you have the option to double up if you wanted. And we also offer certain half-credit electives at the bottom. They're called modules. And so I would love to hear any of your questions on this, and I'm going to end my remarks here just so that I'll stop sharing, just so that we can really have time for questions. But before that, we're going to hear from two terrific current students. We have Abigail Bala, who is a current 12th grader, and Ami Listigan, who is a current 10th grader.
Hi, I'm Abigail, and I'm going to talk about my 11th grade Jewish studies experience. Last year, I took a class called Philosophy and Bioethics, and the first half of the year was about philosophy, and the second half was about applying Jewish texts to issues like torture and abortion. And I think before that and before coming to Gann, I really thought that like Jewish texts were kind of like ancient and wouldn't apply to me. But then I really realized that they can apply to issues that I think about in my life. And during that class, I also kind of developed this belief that just because I don't keep Shabbat or I don't keep kosher doesn't mean that I'm not an observant Jew. Just because like I'm not observant in that way, I like to live by Jewish values, and I do think that that makes me an observant Jew.
All right. Hi, everyone. I'm Ami, so I'm taking Beit Midrash Jewish Studies this year. Next year, I'm excited to be in the Advanced Jewish Studies class. I'm going to be talking to you guys about, so I took this module this year about Talmud and Gemara, where we went through the beginning of a Masechah of Gemara and learned about the judicial process in ancient Judaism. And that was really amazing for me for two different reasons. So first, I was able to really learn more about like text skills and like learn how to like translate Aramaic, which was amazing because the English translations, like they're certainly very interesting, but there's also a lot that you can discover in like just the Hebrew text and the grammar there. And second, there was all sorts of like very, as Abigail was saying, very applicable to the current day messages and meanings in this like ancient text, which I thought was great. And then, so that was a really amazing experience for me, and I had a great time. And second one I want to talk about is, so every year in grades at Gann, we have a Shabbaton where everybody sleeps over at Gann and we all like do Shabbat together and stuff. And it's really amazing for me because I get to like practice Judaism with my classmates and bond. This year we had a Kabbalat Shabbat all together where we were all singing all of the songs, and it was amazing. And I also really love the pluralistic experience because I get to like hear about different levels of Judaism from others, my classmates, and like we all bond together, and it's amazing.
Great. We actually also have another student that's joined us, Evan Black. So Evan, welcome. Thanks for joining us. Do you want to unmute yourself and share a little bit about your experience at Gann?
Yeah, so I'm Evan. My sister is she got into Gann, so she's hopefully coming next year. Is coming next year. And I'm also in 12th grade with Abigail. We're actually both going to test next year, roll buzz. And I am in Jewish Studies this year with a teacher named Dr. Gutoff, and I'm in Jewish Studies, Christianity, Islam, and Judaism. And so coming from Rashi, I didn't really have a ton of background in anything other than Judaism, and I went to preschool at a Jewish preschool, so I was kind of just involved in Judaism. That was my life, and I didn't really have much other experience or knowledge about Christianity or Islam. So coming into senior year, I said to myself, there's no other better time to learn than now. So I'm taking this class now, which is super cool, and I've gotten to like learn about the history, but also some of the modern things that they do. So we just the other day, we talked about just like the daily prayer that people in Islam do. And that's something when we went on our Israel trip in sophomore year, we saw, and I didn't really understand it or know it. So I was able to learn about that and actually understand what was happening. And that's been really cool for me. And then also to still stick with Judaism and to dive deep into that has been super cool.
Awesome. Thanks, Evan. So if people have questions, I would love to open up for questions, and you can either unmute yourself and raise your physical hand if you're on the video, or you can go into participants and raise your virtual hand, or you can just start speaking. And if you have a question that you think is more private, you can also chat that to me or Wendy or Emily or Jethro. Yes, Michael S.
Hello. Can you hear me?
Yes.
All right. I wanted to ask if there was any studies regarding Kabbalah in Jewish studies.
Yeah, so I actually teach a senior elective called Jewish Mysticism. We don't have anyone in the chat at the moment who's taken it, but it's a class I've taught now for about 5 years. And it's really an opportunity for students to think about their connections to God and how they think about God and how they think about how our world is made and how our world functions in a way that's sort of very different from anything that we do in any other class. It's very, there's a lot of art in the class and there's a lot of cross-disciplinary work that we do. And so that's a really, what Evan was saying. In this class, we also have a very popular class called Love, Gender, and Relationships. Senior year is the chance where students can branch out and choose something that they're particularly interested in, and we offer these different electives. So that is an opportunity in senior year. There's little bits of Kabbalah in the other years, but I would say senior year, that's the main place.
Meirowitz, we have a question. I've had a few questions kind of on different ends of the spectrum, and you addressed this a little bit in the beginning, but we have so many different levels of observance in Judaism at Gann. We call ourselves a pluralistic day school, but not everybody really understands what that means. So could you share with us a little bit about what pluralism at Gann looks like and how everybody can observe in their own way, whether it's extremely observant or not as observant?
Yeah, Rabbi Berkman, do you want to take this one?
Sure. I think that takes a lot of different forms. I mean, first of all, there's learning in the classroom and the different kinds of discussions that we have. And I think that a skill that's so important and that we probably don't have enough of in our country right now is learning how to negotiate differences and different ways of doing things and different opinions. And we really work on that skill. We learn about different approaches to Jewish tradition, and we learn to listen to the way other people do things and learn from that, and also to get clear and be able to articulate why we do things our way. So certainly we have a lot of discussions about that and kind of work on developing those skills of living in diverse and pluralistic community. Also, when we might have a Shabbaton that Ami mentioned when he was talking, and there could be a range of different practices for kids who keep Shabbat very traditionally with their families, for kids who don't have a traditional Shabbat practice. And we kind of scaffold that. In 9th grade, we kind of help students negotiate that and kind of have certain systems in place where people from different levels of observance feel comfortable. And as students kind of mature and have learned to negotiate these differences on their own, by the time we get to 11th and 12th grade, the students are kind of working that out on their own. Rabbi Meirowitz, did I cover that? Is there anything else you want to add to that?
Yeah, I mean, I would say first of all that we do our very best to try to make sure that sort of everyone's religious needs are met. By which I mean the kitchen at Gann is kosher and all the food served at all events, whether inside or outside of school, is strictly kosher, that all the practices on our Shabbaton are done in such a way that people who keep any type of Shabbat practice can be comfortable. So there's an encouragement for students to express who they really are and try new things, but also to do that from a place of comfort in who they are and in their own identities. And this, of course, during this 10th grade Israel trip, which for these current 10th graders might be an 11th or 12th grade Israel trip, for the Israel trip, this is where this really comes to a head, where students have to make decisions in community about what kind of Jewish practice they want to do. When you have 60 people in a room, what kind of service are you going to do on Friday night? And this is great preparation for life on a college campus, and this is great preparation for the world.
I wanted to add that I think my Jewish studies classes at Gann have also helped improve skills like my learning skills that can apply to other classes, like reading texts that use different type of language really helped me in analyzing English. And I think also it makes me think about a lot of the values in my classes. So like when we're learning in history about the historical events, I now not only think about like the history events that happened, but deeper values. And I think that's a lot because of the Jewish studies classes I've taken at Gann.
I would also just add that I think some of the other values of like just being able to have a conversation and talk to people and share your opinion, that comes from a class for me, at least like Jewish studies, where I have information and I just want to express it, and I talk to my peers and I learn, and that translates into other classes where I might not know as much information. And I expect, although I haven't been to college, I expect that will be very useful for college and the world beyond college. So that's another skill that I think comes from the Jewish Studies department overall.
Thanks. I had another question about our Zaman Kodesh, and maybe some of our current students could talk about Zaman Kodesh, what that means and what some of the choices are.
I can talk a little bit about my Zaman Kodesh experience. So I took Reform Minyan with Rabbi Berkman freshman year, which was a great time. And since sophomore year, I've been doing Women's Minyan, which has been a really great experience for me. I was the leader last year, and this year I lead like a sophomore only Minyan with another senior, which is really nice. We kind of feel like mentors to them, which is a really great thing. And I think before taking Women's Minyan, I kind of had thought that like my feminism and Judaism had to live exclusively because of like things that are said in the Torah that might not be the most feminist, or just my feminism feeling like non-religious. But I think being in that space and reading texts or just talking about things from a Jewish perspective has made me realize that like I can be a Jewish feminist and not just a Jewish person who is a feminist. And it's a really nice group, and I love spending time with them.
Can I just jump in for 1 second? I just want to, for anyone,
what it is.
yeah, for anyone who might not be sure, Zman Kodesh, which means sacred time, is a program that meets twice a week on Mondays and Thursdays in the morning. And it's a time that we carve out from the rest of the week, where we particularly focus on students' emotional and spiritual lives. And, you know, we at Gann, we really try to tend to the whole person, to the whole child. And this is where we have a particular focus on emotional and spiritual life. And that takes all kinds of different forms. So Abigail was talking about the women's minyan. There are, of course, traditional Jewish prayer minyans that meet, and that's how many of our students choose to spend this time. We have a Orthodox minyan and a what we call traditional egalitarian minyan that's more similar to the conservative movement services, as well as all kinds of different options. There's yoga, there's meditation, there's a lot of groups that focus on kind of sharing, I'd say, like there's a prompt and students share their responses, share stories from their lives. And it's really a powerful time. I mean, I think it's something that has shown to be something special about Gann, and that really resonates with students. When we had to leave the building and go online, we didn't build in Zman Kodesh because it just seemed there was so much we needed to do academically. It was hard to find that time in the schedule, and where there were questions about how well could that work via Zoom calls, but students asked for it. The students group wanted their groups, many of them, to continue meeting, and we've had to, you know, find time for these groups to continue to meet because students really find them to be an important source of support and meaning. So that's an overview. And Ami, did you want to share? Because you're in a traditional minyan, but you also kind of take advantage of another option as well.
Yeah, so I'm in the Trad Egal minyan, which is great. Something great about that is, so when I joined Gann, I was very nervous about leading prayers and tefillot. And over time in the traditional egalitarian minyan, I've learned a lot more about how to do that, and now I'm a lot more confident. And so that's great. And then I also, twice a month, do this thing called Chanoch L'Na'ar, which is a Musar group. That means that we take values, like Jewish values, and we learn about them through Jewish texts and apply them to our own lives. And that's also been really meaningful for me because I've gotten to like change my life and learn more about Jewish texts and stuff like that, and talk with my friends about all that sort of stuff. And so that's also been amazing.
I guess I'll add, I'm in a group called Zman Brodesh, which is a play on word for Zman Kodesh. And I'm a big advocate for Zman Brodesh. Coming from Rashi, I'm a Reformed Jew who doesn't really feel as connected to prayer and being in temple and all that. So when I heard about this group called Zman Brodesh, I was really intrigued. Basically what this group does is we meet, like Rabbi Berkman said, twice a week, and we talk about a lot of different aspects of kind of being a man, whether that be being a man at Gann, being a man in the Jewish world, being a man in the world at large. And we talk about literally anything, and it's student-led. So this year I was a leader along with, it's called a God Bro. And I led it along with two friends, and it's just a really cool experience to bond with other guys in the school while also still keeping with that spiritual, full body, full self aspect to Zman Kodesh. And it's been really awesome.
Thanks, Evan. That's great.
I'll say one other thing about Zman Kodesh, which is that for the people who are interested in traditional minyan, we are saying we have mandatory Zman Kodesh where everybody is in spiritual time on Mondays and Thursday mornings, but we also have optional time on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Friday morning, and every afternoon for mincha. And those are sort of student-led groups, and sometimes there's an Orthodox minyan that will run then, or sometimes there's an egalitarian minyan that will run then, but to give opportunities for people who want a traditional prayer space more than twice a week to participate.
I would say too, it's another touch points for our students to be involved with adults. So we have advisory twice a week. We have mandatory Zman Kodesh twice a week. There is other sacred time, mincha every day for students who want to opt into that. I'm wondering if we have any current parents here.
I'm not sure if she'll speak up, but I know my mom was. Oh, there she is.
Hi, hi everybody.
Hi, Michelle. Not to put you on the spot, but as a current parent, is there anything that you could add?
I would add that I think that the Jewish education that Evan has gotten by the osmosis of being in the Gann environment and the pluralistic set of friends that he has, it's all out of the classroom Jewish learning, but it's been deeply powerful. I think for the first time he went to a traditional family Shabbat dinner and he realized there's so many different ways to practice. And I think that stuff, just he hears speakers and within the Gann, I don't know if it's called Hakel or the community time that he would never be exposed to otherwise. And he's more willing to, he's open-minded and more willing to hear the lessons that are coming to him because they're not saying one way is the right way or the only way. So it's really given him a chance to figure out where he stands and what his position is and how he defines his own personal identity as an emerging young adult. I don't know that there's a lot of kids on the phone and that may not resonate for you, but as a parent, it's been an incredible opportunity to watch my kid grow into a Jewish young adult. It's been powerful, and he would say that it's better than he thought it was going to be. And I said, if you can find a school as good as Gann that doesn't have the Jewish piece, fine. But like, that's how we started. And now here he is talking about what the Jewish piece has given him. And it has all the same academic stuff too, plus the Jewish values. So it's just win-win from a parent's perspective.
Thank you, Michelle. And as Abby mentioned early, Abigail, thank you again. She weaves what she's learning in her Jewish practice and Jewish classes into everything that she's doing. So it is all connected for sure. We had another question for the kids about how did you choose your Zman Kodesh?
I think it's changed since we've gone through it, at least Abigail and I, but originally when we came in, there were three pretty simple options. It was either traditional prayer book based, so it was kind of prayer, but not what we're, instead of doing the prayers, it was kind of dissecting the prayers. Then there was one more, which I forget. And then as you kind of get older, similar to the rest of Gann, and as you go through the grades, there are more options and you can kind of find your group and find your groove, and wherever you want to go, you can end up. I think, I'm sure.
Yeah, at this point, right, we've shifted it a little since you were in 9th grade. So now most of the Zman Kodesh groups are open to all students, including 9th grade. We used to have a more limited selection for ninth graders, but now all of the Zman Kodesh groups actually, except for Zman Brodesh, which is kind of the men's group, and Women's Minyan, which is the women's group. Those two we reserve for 10th graders and above, but all of the other options, all of the traditional options, of course, traditional egalitarian and our Mechitza or Orthodox Minyan. We also have a partnership Minyan, which is kind of a, I guess, a more egalitarian Orthodox Minyan. Meditation, yoga, the sharing groups, those are all open to ninth graders, and you make your choice. You select your top three, and we do our best to get you your top choice. We have an outdoor Minyan also that goes outside and walks in the woods every morning. A lot of options.
Yeah, creativity Minyan also.
Oh, yeah.
Art and writing.
Mm-hmm.
I would say one thing I think is neat about Zman Kodesh is there are some people who pick a Minyan in ninth grade and stay with it for 4 years. And then there are some people who do a different thing every year. And both of those options are great. It's great to really sink into a community. And we actually want each student to pick something and be with it for the whole year, since these Minyanim are like 20 kids, maybe up to 30, but they're not, they're micro communities, and they're one of the strongest micro communities at Gann, the individual Minyanim, the individual groups. So we really encourage students not to switch, but to stay in one for the whole year. But some students want a year of traditional prayer, and then a year of yoga, and then a year of discussion, and that's cool. And some students want to do the same thing for all 4 years, and that's cool too.
Just scrolling through to see if we have other questions.
Do you have other questions?
I don't know if this is a Rabbi Berkman and a Rabbi Meirowitz question, but there was a question about Tikkun Olam and what we do in terms of volunteering and community outreach as related to Judaism.
I can talk about that. Yeah. So that's something that's we're kind of have a new initiative to make that a fuller part of our Jewish educational offerings. So we have a unit in ninth grade that focuses on the value of chesed, or loving kindness. And we learn about that value and the way it's rooted in Jewish tradition. And then ninth graders engage in chesed projects, which Gann arranges for you. So as a class, your ninth grade class would go out and maybe visit Hebrew Senior Life or a nursing home, or volunteer in another setting doing chesed. Then as we move into 10th and 11th and 12th grade, we kind of introduce other Jewish values along with chesed. We also look at the value of citizenship and civic engagement. Hebrew word for that might be ezrachut. And we offer opportunities for students to engage civically. And we, there's trips to Washington, D.C. with the reform movement to lobby. There are Israel-related lobbying and civic engagement opportunities. So, and then we also learn about the value of tzedek and justice in 11th and 12th grade, and have those opportunities. In 10th through 12th grade, we do have a chesed or tikkun olam requirement of a certain number of hours, and then we kind of set up opportunities to make it easier for students to do those hours. And we're, again, doing our best to root those experiences in the Jewish values and teaching those values in the classroom.
I have a question from somebody who is coming from public school and talking about that. For new families who don't know, half of our kids come from Jewish day schools and half come from independent schools or other public schools. So we definitely have a wide variety of backgrounds. I don't know if any of our current students could talk about that.
I can talk about that. I came from public school. So the first thing is that I definitely have a misconception that 90% of Gann students came from day school and 10% came from public school, which is a misconception. And I was really worried that everybody else was going to have this whole wealth of knowledge about Judaism, and me, like being Reform, I wouldn't have as much knowledge, and also coming from public school and not having a Jewish day school education, I was worried about like being self-conscious in a Hebrew class and Jewish studies class. But one thing that I think Gann does really great is they really meet you where you're at. And I felt like Jewish studies and Hebrew class were both challenging, but like appropriately challenging for me. And I had some spots where I had gaps in knowledge, but some spots where I didn't. And socially, it didn't affect me at all. I would say I was worried about that, but not at all. Everybody comes in wanting to meet new people and just experience Gann for what it is. And I don't think it's been an issue for me at all. It's been nice. Yeah.
I don't know if we have other public school kids. No. So the opposite question I just got is, in terms of social life, how does social life work again with kids who are observant Shomer Shabbos? Is there a respect for kids who don't go out on Shabbos? Maybe our kids can answer that.
I can answer part of it, Nami, if you want to answer the other part. I don't really know. So I always tell the story. My 9th grade year, I get to Gann and I'm meeting everyone. And I come home one day and I told my mom, I was like, oh my God, Mom, like, guess what? Like, one of my friends is Orthodox. Coming from Rashi, this is like a big thing because I was all Reformed Jews. And I didn't even know. This was like 6 months into the year, something like. It's so not even a part of my thinking. And people are conscious, and I'd say now as a 12th grader, I obviously know how people observe, but I don't think I've ever run into a problem where like someone wants to hang out on Saturday and other people can't. Like it's not really it's hard to explain, and it sounds crazy that it's not really a problem, but like that's just the Gann community. It just everyone works around each other and makes it possible for everyone. So personally, I've never had a problem with it, and I've actually been surprised about that because I actually had the same exact question.
Yeah, adding on to Ethan, like one of the big values of Gann, I think, is like respect and understanding like other people and pluralism, and that's been like amazing for me, and I think for my friends too. Again, like I have friends who come from public school or Reform who are more observant than me, and like we all can like talk about Jewish values. We all respect each other. We're all still friends. It's like it doesn't really come into the picture, right? And we just get to learn about like different Jewish practices and about like each other's lives. And I think that's a really amazing part of Gann.
Awesome.
Yeah, I would say also that our traditional students, I know in some grades, I think the senior class, there are like a handful of students whose homes become the locus for traditional Shabbat observance. So you might have one family where, 10 kids are going over there for Shabbat, often in Brookline or in Newton or Sharon. And so for traditional students, they are able to be in community with other students who practice like them, but also there are students who drive on Shabbat or who don't really keep a traditional Shabbat, but maybe they'll come to dinner at this person's house on Friday night. So everyone is really able to join over shared practice, whether or not they find this practice to be a binding obligation or not, if that makes sense. So the sort of the social bonds and the bonds of doing Jewish things together connect people across observance levels.
Yeah, I would just add, I've had a couple of experiences where my friends are observant and I'll go over to their house for Shabbat and I'll drive to their house and keep my phone in my car and have that experience and then drive back home. And I think that that's also a cool experience for me because I've never really done that before again. And I've even slept over at people's houses and kept Shabbat, which has been a really cool experience for someone who doesn't do that. But like Ami said, everyone respects each other, and no one is ever going to get mad if you say, I can't do this on Saturday. Like everyone understands and everyone will accommodate.
Thanks, everyone. That's great. I have another question for our students if nobody else is jumping in. We talk a lot about, at least in the admissions department, about only at Gann, and I'd love to hear from our students and also from our rabbis. What have you done only at Gann that you think you wouldn't have been able to do either at a public school or an independent school? And it could be, I mean, I'm guessing it's some Jewish framing, but something that you have experience in the Gann community that you might not have done somewhere else. I'm putting them all on the spot.
This is kind of small thing, but I think before Gann, like I knew that there was a Jewish calendar, but I didn't understand really what Rosh Chodesh was, and like Rosh Chodesh is like head of the month. And so even if it's not a Monday or a Thursday, we'll have Zaman Kodesh, and then we get croissants. And it was just Rosh Chodesh last week, and I found myself getting so sad that I wasn't like waking up to go to Minyan and have a croissant because we were doing Zoom learning. And I don't know, I just think like I realized how much I'm gonna miss that next year, and how much like the little traditions at Gann we have, like the monthly croissants, mean to me.
Abby, I'm sure everybody may or may not know what Rosh Chodesh is, but will you share for them? Rosh Chodesh is?
Rosh Chodesh is the first day of the Hebrew month.
Yeah.
That when we mark that at Gann and with chocolate croissants and a Zman Kodesh meeting.
I love that. Thank you.
I'll share something that students shared with me a couple of years ago. I did focus groups with 12th graders, just asking them like, what about the Jewish stuff at Gann did you really love or resonated with you? And a bunch of students, which I wasn't necessarily expecting this, talked about the way their Jewish studies classes become this place where you talk about what's important in life and like what kind of a person you want to be, and kind of these big questions that might not quite have a place in other schools kind of have a home in the Jewish studies, but particularly I think in the 11th and 12th grade classes. And the students were so grateful to kind of have a way, kind of a place to root those conversations about the meaning of life and the kind of person that they want to be. I don't know if Evan or Ami, if you guys have experiences that you would say were only at Gann.
Yeah, so I've got something that sort of like what you were saying, Rabbi Berkman. So my Jewish studies class this year, we have all sorts of amazing conversations about like what Judaism means to us and like our lives and stuff like that, as well as like, you know, translating Hebrew texts and things like that. And these conversations have been like so meaningful to me, and everybody in the class has become really close friends. And I'm actually really happy that we have online school right now, and Gann's been so good at like organizing that really quickly. So I still have my Jewish studies class, and I can still talk with my friends about like meaningful and important stuff in my life.
We were talking before the whole group gathered that Gann had basically 2 days off, and then we went right into online learning. So our advisories are meeting twice a week. Our classes are meeting. As you heard from Rabbi Berkman, we want, our kids want Zaman Kodesh. So we really came together, and there was a very short downtime, which we had planned for, in order to go to online learning. So even though we're not together in our bayit, which is our home at 333 Forest Street in Waltham, we are really all together, which is great. I have a question, looping back a little bit to Zaman Kodesh, about is there a chance to hear from leaders before choosing? And when do students choose their Zaman Kodesh?
Yeah, so I mean, we'll have to think about how this is going to work this year, but generally students choose on Step Up Day in the spring. So on the day when they meet their classmates, and then there's a few minutes where the teachers and the different upper class students sort of talk about the different groups. We'll see how Step Up Day is going to function, but I'm sure we'll do something similar either over Zoom, and there's also short descriptions. The other thing I'll say, and this is true about everything again, is the first couple weeks of the school year is add drop period. So if you sign up for a Zaman Kodesh option, or for that matter, if you sign up for a Jewish studies class or a French class or whatever, now, and when you come to school in September, you're like, you know what, I actually really want to take Spanish. I really want to take yoga. You can switch. So you're not locked into anything until like the third week of the school year. So it's not we want you to stay in something for the whole year, but there's a little bit of flex time at the beginning.
Other questions, concerns, thoughts? Rabbi Meirowitz?
Oh, I was just going to ask if anyone has any specific questions about the curriculum, about the more text-intensive classes or the non-Beit Midrash, Beit Midrash, any of those. We're happy to address those off if people have questions about those.
I have a question. Are there any Jewish studies classes where you analyze God and his decisions?
That's a nice question. So I have two answers to that question. The short answer is yes, and I'm trying to think about where. Senior year, if you take my mysticism class, it's all about God. I'd say in every other class, every other year, there is some component where you're thinking about God. In 10th grade, there's thinking about the exile from the destruction of the temple and why that happened. 11th grade is a big unit on the Holocaust and why bad things happened to the Jewish people. So I think that, and some of the Beit Midrash classes, you're reading the Torah as a work of literature and really thinking about like the characters and how the character of God functions in the Torah. So I think that there's both opportunities to think. Also, I'd say 9th grade, there's a prayer unit. So thinking about God in the context of the Siddur. So there's both opportunities to think about like how have Jews thought about God throughout history, and also how do I think about God myself now? Short answer is a little bit in every year and a lot in senior year.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Great question. Thank you.
I'll just add one thing, not so much about the God question, which is, love the question, but about the question about students with such a wide range of backgrounds and levels of Jewish education. So just one other thing to know is that in 9th grade, we generally group the kids who are coming with less Jewish education in the same section or sections, which I think the feedback has been that works well and they feel more comfortable in that setting. And then in 10th grades, all students are kind of mixed together you can still choose if you're going to be in the type 1 classes or type 2 or the advanced classes, but students are generally mixed together.
I have a quick question. In the Jewish studies classes, do you ever analyze commentaries from more medieval rabbis? Not specifically the Talmud, but like the Rambam and Rashi.
Sure, definitely. Ami, are you doing any of that in your Jewish studies class? Do you want to weigh in?
Yeah, so we just had this big unit about Israel and like the history of Israel from from biblical times. We read a lot of really interesting Rashi and Rambam commentaries and all sorts of different rabbis about what they thought about this. And then also in 9th grade, we were doing lots and lots and lots of that. Like for every different unit, we would we were talking about kashrut, we would look at different commentaries from rabbis. And that's been almost as big a part of the commentary is so essential to Jewish texts. So we do stuff like that a lot.
And I would say that the advanced Jewish studies classes are even more centered around that. So if you take advanced Tanakh, if you take an advanced, this year they're teaching Shmot, Exodus. So that is reading Exodus through the rabbinic lens, through the lens of medieval Parshanim and the medieval commentators. But certainly in all of our classes, and primarily the topics-based texts in the original, which is class number 2, or the advanced classes, there's a lot of medieval commentaries.
Thank you. Do we have other questions? Okay, I think this is probably a time that we can pause and say thank you. I certainly want to say thank you to Rabbi Meirowitz and Rabbi Berkman, to all of our current students, Abby, Ami, Evan, Michelle, a current parent, and to all of you, our prospective students and families. We hope this gave you a little glimpse into Gann, Jewish life, Jewish curriculum, Jewish learning. We are here. We know this is really hard. We know this is a time that people are feeling disconnected. We wanted you to come back. We were so excited for you to come back this week and visit our school. And we are going to continue to share all of this amazing information and knowledge online, virtually, on our admitted students website, which I shared in our chat, and we will reach out to you again with that information. We're going to have a landing page, or we have a landing page with all of this. This will be recorded, other information, certainly email addresses. So if you have private questions for Rabbi Berkman, Rabbi Meirowitz, or for our current students, we're here. We want to help you make this decision. We hope you choose Gann. We love Gann. Our current students love Gann, and we're here to help you. So please, please reach out. And rabbis, I don't know if you have any parting words of wisdom for us.
I would just say that this is a big group on this Zoom call, and there may have been questions that you kind of wanted to ask but weren't sure. So I just don't want there to be unanswered questions. So please, if there's something that felt a little sensitive or you didn't want to ask it in front of the whole Zoom call, anything about Jewish education at all, please email me or Rabbi Meirowitz. We could set up a time to talk. We're happy to talk at length about anything. But we really want to be available to you and, help you know everything that you feel you need to know in order to make the best decision.
Yeah, and we can even stay. We could stay on the call now also for a few minutes if anyone wanted to chat us. We could also open up a breakout room if there were things that were private.
Thank you all again for joining us on a rainy Sunday. Be well, have a good week, and you will hear from us at Gann Admissions. Thank you to Emily and to Gina, who work so hard in admissions every day and are on this call. And we're here to help you. So thank you, thank you. Okay, thank you, everybody. I'm going to end our meeting.